Welcome to South of Left Field. My name is Jimmy. For the topic for this week, I am going to veer away from our current COVID-19 pandemic. And from my little perch, South of Left Field as the title goes, I would like to just sort of look for a little bit at what is going on with our government. Now, what we have here is sort of a learning opportunity. It's been a learning opportunity for me to understand that things like issuing orders to shelter in place, this is something that is vested in the state governments. State government, since we have what's referred to as a federalist system, has a significant amount of power. And what course of action is selected as far as each individual state goes is going to be set by its governor and by its legislature. I know that noise is being made about, we need to stop this sheltering in place, and we need to get the economy going again, but quite frankly, the Constitution doesn't give the President of the United States the power to do that. The thing that's striking to me right now is this is really a good lesson in where the powers are assigned and what the different branches of government can and cannot do. For all that our presidential campaign for this year has had candidates standing up on the stage promising all kinds of programs and changes in spending and new laws and a new sort of deal, if you will, for the American population. By and large, these candidates are promising things that they have absolutely no power to bring about. If something has to be changed with regard to a law, if something has to be changed with regard to taxation, spending, budgetary issues, everything else, the president is largely a spectator from the sideline. He's got one real option, and that's a veto. And he can use the power of that veto to lobby or negotiate with the members of the Congress and the House and Senate. But he can't even so much as introduce a bill. So all this noise about yes, Easter, we're going to stop sheltering in place. We're going to put, America's going to be open for business again. Sorry, dude. The governors will make that decision, not you. And you can cajole and you can order and you can dictate all you want to, but you can't do that. One of the other things that is kind of interesting is to listen to the dialogue as the federal government does begin to exercise what powers and authorities it does have. Now, there's been a lot of noise about this $2 trillion spending bill. Of course, now, people whose voices are not really being heard by Congress and hasn't been heard from a long time, they're venting some frustration on social media about, they didn't have any problem coming up with $2 trillion. What about all these other things that we can't afford? Now, quite simply, anything that smacks of, we can only shift the money, we can't increase the amount spent. Congress can do whatever it wants to. That's a self-imposed restriction. And it's a good justification and excuse for not doing many things. We need to remember that the Congress of the United States, both the House and the Senate, have evolved into being representatives for the upper class of the country. Now, the original arrangement for the government of the United States, as first laid down in the Constitution, the Founding Fathers dismissed any thought of straight democracy immediately. Since the Founding Fathers were largely the upper class of American society at the time, or what was going to become American society after the Revolution, one of their concerns was that they did not want the broad mass of the population that they considered to be ill-educated and ill-equipped to make decisions of governance. They didn't want them to have the ability to vote away their wealth. So the government was actually set up to allow a voice for the general population, but not too much of a voice. The House of Representatives was directly elected. But counting on the upper classes of each individual state to control the state legislators, senators were appointed by the state legislatures. They were not elected through popular election until, I think it was 1913. An amendment to the Constitution made the position of senator subject to general election. So what you had was a very upper class president, a Senate made up of people elected by state legislature, so that hopefully they would be largely representatives of the upper class of the society. And then, of course, you had the House of Representatives, which was elected by the total voting population. Let's don't forget, in order to vote at that time, you had to be 21, male, white, and own land. So estimates vary between 6 and 20%, or 6 and 25% of the population having the ability to vote at all. So at the very least, 3 out of 4 of the citizens of the United States had no right to the vote. And this included all the women. Some states actually banned Jews and Catholics from voting. That's all. It didn't matter if you were white and owned land. You couldn't vote. And, of course, African Americans were not allowed to vote, by and large. So while on the surface of things, our upper class lost their control of the Senate, in reality, they have not. What we have now is a Congress whose very first thought and very first bills in trying to address the tremendous economic damage that this pandemic is doing to the United States economy, they went whole hog straight to help businesses. We've got to help the banks. We've got to help the airlines. I mean, that was by and large the biggest part of the talk. $2 trillion and everybody will celebrate it. Well, the fact is, most of that $2 trillion, a very significant portion of that $2 trillion, just like the $1.5 trillion from the 2008 meltdown that President Obama inherited, is going to go to businesses. It's going to go to banks. And even the monies that go to businesses are going to be processed through banks. And so financial institutions are going to, believe me, get their really good fair share out of all of this. Now, all of this makes sense when you understand that the Congress is made up of people who are part of what George Carlin called that great big club. That great big club are people of significant substance. That great big club is millionaires, multimillionaires, and billionaires. And that great big club understands itself, understands its needs, and understands its business. The thing is, the system got tilted to the upper class so heavily that something the founders did not foresee, well, two things they did not foresee. One, they did not foresee that the House of Representatives was going to be completely occupied by their own class. And the general population of the United States would have no direct representation. I can assure you that the House and the Senate, as a body, is not capable of crafting a bill that really addresses all of the problems that the citizens of this country are going to be suffering from. The reason that they don't is they have minimized our government so severely that there is nobody within the government that plans for situations like this. Our military has a general staff that plans for fighting wars of all kinds and levels all over the world. There are plans to do just about everything. But when it comes to something like this, there's not been a plan or a thought given. The reserves of medical supplies that were supposed to be maintained so that FEMA could help in the case of localized disasters was allowed to languish going well back during the early years of the Bush era. And while these supplies had been drawn down and allowed to age, and in some cases age out of use, nothing was really done to restock these supplies. And so now that we have such a serious need for it, There's no plan. There's no plan because the people in our government don't represent us, don't know us, and they don't see the need for planning because they are so insulated and so independently wealthy. Their plan is to open their pocketbook. That's their plan. And they see the world as people should all be able to do this. I don't understand why people can't. If you were better at running your life, you could do it. I can do it. No. Please, while we are trying to get through this pandemic, try to keep one eye on what is going on at the higher levels of government. You're going to get a real lesson in what your state government's up to because you're going to be hearing a lot from them. But don't forget to pay attention to the federal side of the equation. The issue is not who the president is. When it comes to times of deep crisis and when it comes to helping our society to become strong, the real power rests in the Congress. You need to look at your representatives, you need to look at your senators, and you need to notice what they're really paying attention to, what they go to first, and what they talk about most. Because I can almost guarantee you, it won't be you or I. Thank you for listening. Please feel free to share, and I hope you will like and follow this channel and share it with your friends. Till next time, this is Jimmy signing off.